To be as efficient as possible in the weightlifting movements, you always want to keep the barbell in close proximity to your body. And in this video, you will learn everything you need to know in order to get it right. Now, what exactly does it mean keeping the barbell close? Basically, it means that we would avoid every unnecessary horizontal displacement of the barbell. That might be different depending on your limb length and your height, but also on the lift you're trying to perform. The optimal trajectory isn't necessarily a straight line, but it's as close to a straight line as possible. Now you might be asking, why is it important? Exactly for two reasons. One, it will allow you to lift the greatest loads possible, while also being as efficient as possible. And this doesn't only apply to the heaviest lifts you're doing, but also to lighter lifts when you're doing barbell cycling, for example, in a Metcon context. So where does this usually go wrong? One of the most common issues we observe, not only with beginners, but also with more advanced athletes, is a wrong starting position. If the hips are too low in the starting position, that leads to the shins being very far forward and pushing the barbell out to the front. Now, as we start lifting it, the barbell needs to go around the knees in order to get into the optimal position for the second pull. And this certainly is something we can easily fix by just having the hips slightly higher. A second error that we also see with athletes of all levels is overusing of the hips during the second pull. We usually like to explain the concept like this. The hips bring speed to your lift while the legs give you the height. But you need to do both at the same time. So for athletes that are overusing the hips, we usually like to cue more towards the legs and tell them to drive through the floor or push the floor away with their legs. That way, they put a bit more emphasis on the leg drive instead of the hip drive, and then usually they find the right balance of speed and height during the lift. Another thing we commonly observe is being passive during the turnover of the lift. And again, this applies not only to the snatch, but also to the clean. With the clean, it might even be a bit more pronounced and result into crashing of the barbell. What does passive and active actually mean? Being active means that we want to pull ourselves down and around the barbell to get into the receiving position. We actually have an entire video dedicated to this concept that you can find here, and this will also help you to improve speed under the bar. Now let's talk about the key elements that help you to keep the bar as close to your body as possible. The first thing here is positional awareness. And this is something you will build over multiple repetitions over a long period of time. As with everything, it takes a lot of practice and a long time to really dial it in and have consistent positions that you can access every single time, even under fatigue in a workout setting, for example. So this does also mean during every warm-up, every time you grab a barbell, you want to be as intentional with your movements as possible to really build robust movement patterns and not just go through the motions because it's just the warm-up. The other key element here is developing correct timing. And timing, especially for weightlifting, is crucial. It's one of the most important aspects. And again, we can only ingrain it with a lot of repetitions over a long period of time. Timing is basically the sequencing of moving your body parts and interacting with the barbell. The drills we're going to show you next are going to help you to build the correct timing while also working on positional awareness. Usually when we do something more static or slow, it's great to develop positional awareness, and then if we move fast and very dynamic, that's good to build the correct timing. But obviously we always want to work on both things at the same time. And this could mean you start your session with some technical primers, then you do your main lifts, and then you maybe do some supplementary exercises after you do your main lift that all assist with developing these key elements for your lifting. Now we're going to show you drills and exercises that help you to keep the bar as close as possible during the snatch and the clean. We're going to start with a complex of a snatch pull and a below the knee snatch. This can also be an above the knee hang snatch or a high hang snatch. But we really like the below the knee complex, just because you have to navigate the barbell around your knees, and this is usually the most difficult part of the bar path. So the snatch pull here allows you to move a bit slower and really be conscious about the way you move the barbell, and then you try to reproduce the same thing when you do the below the knee snatch. So Anais is going to demonstrate 2 reps of the complex now. As I said, maybe you want to apply somewhat of a slower tempo on the snatch pull just to get it around the knee, all right? And then you go into the below the knee position and perform the snatch from there. Try to keep it as close to your body as possible for obvious reasons, and really try to be conscious when you do the snatch pull and try to reproduce the same thing from the below the knee position, and relax. This same exercise can also be done with the clean. So here we would do a clean pull plus a below the knee clean. So we're going to pick up the barbell with a nice clean deadlift. So we're starting in the tall position, we come to the high hang position and perform the first rep from here. Then we move on to the hang position, also with the focus of keeping the barbell close. And then on the last one, we move the barbell all the way into the below the knee position and try to do the same thing. As you could see, with every clean we were doing, the complexity was increasing. So we have more degrees of freedom, so there are also more things that can go wrong. But because you did the previous rep in a correct way, because you reduced the complexity, there's a higher probability that you will do the right thing with more complexity. The next drill we're going to show you is one of my favorites. It's called no hook, no feet snatch, or no hook, no feet clean. That means we won't be using the feet, and we're also not using a hook grip. And that forces you to be very precise with your lifting, because not having a hook grip doesn't give you as much control. So if you're maybe swinging the barbell a lot, you won't be able to make the corrections as well. And also if you tend to jump forward or backwards, you obviously can't do that anymore, because your feet need to be bolted or connected to the floor, because there should not be any movement. As your receiving position for the snatch or the clean might be a bit wider than your pulling position or pulling stance, you will start with a bit of a wider stance when you do your pull. That might feel awkward at first, but over time you will get used to it and get more comfortable in this position. What Anais is going to demonstrate now is 3 no hook, no feet squat snatches. So we have the wide grip. As you can see, her feet are wider than usual in the pulling position. And without moving her feet and without having a hook grip, she's going to perform the snatch. And one more. This drill is not only good to train keeping the barbell in close proximity to the body, but also to train other aspects of the lift, like speed under the bar or having good positional awareness in the bottom position, for example. The 2 exercises we just showed you are great main exercises for your lifting. That means you can load them relatively heavy. You won't build up to 100% of them, but you can work in a range of 60 to 90% to really get your lifting dialed in. The next exercise we show you is a great way to overload this even more, because it's going to be a snatch pull where we really focus on a slow eccentric, like a slow negative from the top, and that should really reinforce the movement pattern we're trying to build with keeping the barbell as close to the body as possible. And as with all of these drills, this can also be done with the clean. Anais is going to demonstrate 3 eccentric snatch pulls now. So the positive part, or the concentric, is just as your regular snatch pull, but then you're really going to slow down and reverse the barbell into the starting position as slow as possible, really trying to build that connection while doing the negative as slow as possible. This might not necessarily be something you will do all the way up to the maximum as you would usually do with regular snatch pulls, but you could confidently build up to 100% of your most recent snatch and perform 3 to 5 sets of 2 to 4 repetitions. As I've said many times throughout this video, developing consistent and good technique with your lifting takes a long period of time and patience. So what we would recommend here is that you constantly film yourself. We have given some instructions earlier in this video on how you do that in the best way. And then maybe come back to this video or some of our other videos that you will find up here to review what are the key elements and what are the exercises. And then through implementing them consistently in your training, you will see the improvements. If you are curious how we would put these exercises into action in our training programs, you can find a link down below. And if you're specifically interested in improving your weightlifting, we would highly recommend the program Power, as this is one of its main focuses. And as always, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.